All right, I think we'll just get started then. Um, Super excited that you guys are all here. Love to talk about emotional intelligence and content creation. This is going to be really interactive too. I really like to be able to make this um, super engaging with people. So we'll actually do some writing. Make sure you have some pen and paper next to you, as well as a breakout room. So kind of get your vocal cords warmed up here. um, we will. Let me pull up my notes here. So, how to be more emotionally intelligent with your content creation process. It's a really long name, but uh, the reason why I created this workshop was for many reasons. Mostly because personally, I am very passionate about emotional intelligence. Um, and I was very hypersensitive to burnout coming from a, a corporate career in technology where I was definitely hitting my own sense of burnout there and kind of hit my own quarter life crisis and realized that one of the reasons was because the lack of my personal emotional intelligence in managing my own emotions and managing, um, what those triggers were and how to regulate them. And now going into starting an online business, I decided to take the more social media route and content creation. And it's just as easy to also burn out from that as well. So I know if there's many other coaches here who want to, start creating content, how can we make that sustainable? Um, so if you were in John Kim's class before, this is going to be more on the process of creating content and the sustainability of that versus the actual creation of the content. Um, as a quick preview, what and how we build that sustainability, I've kind of simplified it to these 5 steps. So first, it's about setting our intentions, and we'll actually go through this in the rest of the hour here, but we set intentions, increase our emotional awareness, understanding what we're actually feeling, to uncover the challenges and beliefs that um, that are underneath that, and then to really experiment and iterate to know that we are in always in beta as human beings, as content creators, as people. So um, really experimenting with that, and then really setting the routine and the environment that will make this a lot more sustainable for you. So in this workshop, we'll kind of hit a little bit of the first three here, and the last two is going to be, of course, your own responsibility to start incorporating how it's going to work for you, how it's going to look different for you, or to work with your own coach about that. So, quickly about me, um, keeping track of time. Uh, I grew up very top heavy. From an energetic level, coming from the first generation American born kid from immigrant parents, uh, we're very cultured to be this left brain, very logical, like get the good grades, save the money, um, and whatnot. And there wasn't really enough space for my own emotions. So I felt very alone in that, not feeling very comfortable to express any negative emotions, especially when it would have been perceived as a weakness or a vulnerability, um, or left me susceptible to others or taken advantage of. So I went into uh, the very left-brained space in informatics, in computer science, with a focus on human-computer interaction. Um, that was I actually really am grateful for how that all turned out in terms of yeah, being more on the user experience side of things rather than just the technology and computer science. I got to talk with people. I got to, and when I went into consulting, got to be in so many different teams, got to talk to the business, got to talk to creatives, as well as the developers and architects. Um, but there was still that lack of the deeper space that I was personally seeking. So I hit burnout there, realizing that the trajectory I was in wasn't really fully utilizing my own values as well as strengths as a human. And it was something I think I might have developed growing up as a kid where I personally, didn't really have many good role models and relationship models. My parents bickered all the time. My grandparents slept in different beds. We just didn't really there wasn't as much depth, I'd say. And um, and I kind of took it upon myself to develop that and to, focus my sort of attention and energy around that. Um, but it still wasn't very utilized in my space. So then started this whole thing and started writing and started creating videos and podcasts. I have just released 57 or on to 57 soon, which is pretty cool. Um, but now that I'm reconnecting with my own emotional intelligence, you know, I'm always cognizant of how to make sure I stay consistent and how to make this sustainable for myself. Um, I'd like to kind of take a couple minutes here. I know we've been all popping around and consuming so much right now with all these different classes. Um, Kind of reflect on why you're here, and we'll maybe even just give it a minute here, in a moment of silence. I am no guided meditator at all, but um, we can we'll just kind of sit in about a minute here, and I'd really like you use it in however you want. If you want to write something down, or if you just want to sit in silence with yourself, but kind of meditate on why do you want to create content? What what have you been doing, or what's been drawing you to create content in the first place? Or maybe if you have been, what keeps you going? So we'll just give it a minute. I'm seeing people in the chat here, which is great. I want my sessions to be more meaningful for someone else. I want to connect with more people and spread my story and message. I want them to walk away with one thought, their own thought. Love that. So, yeah, if you haven't already, kind of write that down for yourself, and we'll be kind of using that as we go along here. Um, so the kind of the other question now attached to that is, now that you have that intention and your reason for being here, what are your outcomes that you would like to see and especially feel from creating your content, uh, from 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 being out there? I really like this concept of thinking about outcomes rather than goals. We always think about, we want to hit 10,000 followers. We gotta write a book. We gotta, do these things, um, and we forget about the kind of higher level outcome we'd like to come out of it. So, um, so maybe we'll give it a couple seconds for you to kind of think about that, and I'll just gonna split you up into a two-person breakout room for you to quickly share with a partner, just for a few seconds, and and then we'll come back to this room and see how that goes. Awesome. Hope you guys had a good little share there. Um, so what I want to talk about next now too is, um, it's a as I create content, there's a constant struggle and balance between, you know, doing this for yourself and sharing your own message and really like what lights you up, while also making it relevant for others, while making it engaging and valuable for others. Um, I kind of came up with this three circle Venn diagram here, where there's a sweet spot right in the middle, where if you can kind of create the content and think about why your content needs to exist, between what lights you up, what excites you, what generates curiosity for you, as well as it being challenging. What's something that's scary or uncomfortable or a growth area for you, while also being relevant for others. So using a little more of the you language as well so that they can connect with it, that they can resonate with it. Um, and then, of course, circling back to make sure it's still authentic to you, and shares a little more of a personal story from your end as well. Um, the cool thing about this too is that it is constantly in flow. So you might start off maybe with the top end of the diagram where you just want to create something that really lights you up, that you get excited about. And over time you start, connecting with others, you start getting more engagement, and you start to learn what are other people looking for, what kind of information is resonating with them. And then you can start stretching yourself. Like, what's something new you can do? What's something uncomfortable? I know for me, it was I've been doing this kind of fun thing where one of my friends is creating a thing called Flow Masters. I like to describe it as a intersection of improv, Toastmasters, and freestyle rapping. And so, super weird and uncomfortable for me. But it has been so helpful to stretch that growth in really just expressing myself over music, and not judging myself about it. So it's that combination of what is lighting me up and challenging me. And I am personally in that stage now, like, how can I make this relevant for people or entertaining or engaging? Um, and so knowing that it's kind of constantly in flow, you can kind of use this to balance the other areas. And again, it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be always in that sweet spot. But to know that it kind of flows around is pretty cool too. Um, so connecting then on the emotional intelligence side of things. Um, I like to use the EQI 2.0 model, and there's a couple other models that, one from Daniel Goleman. He has a kind of a quadrant about the self and relation with others. Um, I like to use this sort of wheel here that it breaks out into these five categories. It's super helpful to think about. So self-perception, or how I think of it as like self-awareness, um, self-expression, interpersonal, decision making, and stress management. Um, and my notes are wrong here, but the uh, the emotional intelligence is super important here to really connect with the emotions of why you are creating this content, right? So with the emotional intelligence, I think it's really important to connect with the emotion. So one of the first step is naming that emotion. As you are creating your content, as you are um, starting to even hit some level of burnout, or maybe why you're not, you know, reaching the goals or the outcomes that you are setting yourself for, what is that emotion, right? I think a lot of it, we think of it on a surface level. Oh, I'm maybe tired, or, um, angry, sad, uh, and and without really drilling down and getting very specific on that emotion, it's hard to know what to do with that. It's a very vague thing that can lead you astray in so many different areas. So once we can kind of name that emotion and going back to that uh, sort of that wheel here, increasing that self-perception side of your emotional intelligence. Um, and again, EQ is very important for creativity in that. Once you are able to understand and name those emotions, you can start to create a lot more awareness of what is creating the ups and downs of being a content creator, right? Um, from the positive sense, like I do feel joy from this. I do feel excitement. What creates that, And if you can really tap into that, if you can really document that, um, you can use that as a point of reference for when maybe you are starting to feel more of the lows. Um, and when you are feeling the lows, what is also creating that? Is it your environment? Is it the people around you? Is it the fears of judgment, or the voices that you might have, the beliefs that are underneath that? Um, so super important to manage the ups and downs there. I also think it's really cool to use emotional intelligence to draw connections. Creativity is all about connecting the dots. I was very guilty of that too, where I didn't think I was a creative person, because I had this limited sense of what a creative person is like some, French painting person in Paris or something. Um, but it really is just drawing connections. And emotional intelligence is really important for that, because when we can tap into this more intangible language, it's almost seeing that in different perspectives. It's seeing it in a different lens that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. So emotions are also another source of data. As I was kind of saying before, it's like this intangible language, right? And um, so many of us try to seek out this, like the best platform to use, the right words to say, or even all the stories or whatnot. And so it's like kind of externalizing to all these things on the outside, but we forget to connect with what's inside, with our intuition, with our gut, with our emotions. And I'm obviously still practicing that. I think it's a constant practice for sure, but really speaking from what you are feeling from an internal source, um, that could be really important and inspirational for creativity. Um, so back to that three circle Venn diagram, and kind of combining that with the emotional intelligence framework, the EQ 2.0 model, I kind of see what lights you up as that self perception, as that self expression, you know? And and then what is challenging to you is going to also require the stress management skills, to manage all the ups and downs, the fears that might come up, um, and where that's coming from, whether or not that's valid for yourself. And also to stay optimistic, to not be debilitated by the process of it all, the comments, or the fact that you're not getting as much engagement, um, and then for it to be relevant for others also requires the interpersonal skills as well as the decision making skills. Um, you have to do a lot of reality testing, right? Like, is this content relevant for others given the circumstances, given the state of the world, or um, if it's something that people actually care about, um, or how can you make it relevant for them so that they can care about it? How can you relate to their experience? Um, So again, the importance of emotional intelligence is increasing those interpersonal skills, that empathy, that then creates a lot more engaging content. So this is kind of how I see the intersection between emotional intelligence and this content creation process. So another model I like to use now to uh, to solidify a lot of what we've been talking about so far is the ABCDES. And I think if anyone's familiar with the Brooke Castillo's coaching model of like thoughts, feelings, and actions, it's somewhat similar as well. But based on what you wrote down and what you expressed to your partner earlier, this is where you can kind of fill in the dots here, where your intentions and why you're doing it might kind of help shine light on the attitude that you might have when creating content. You know, what is, as you're thinking about your creative project, what is this attitude that you have towards it, you know? Um, and maybe we'll do a quick exercise if you want to start writing these down as well and start filling in the blanks. But um, with your beliefs, what what core beliefs do you hold about yourself, about your ability to be able to see through your content creation process, to be able to, you know, to make that commitment of maybe releasing those 12 episodes again, as John Kim likes to say, like just commit to yourself. I want to do 12 or something, and seeing where that goes. But what beliefs do you hold about yourself that can actually make that happen? Um, how do you actually conceptualize it in your mind? What is that vision that you see? Maybe this is where your outcomes can kind of help facilitate that process, as well as the intentions. What does it mean to you to actually, you know, be a content creator, or to express yourself, or to create engagement with people? Um, what might you be denying? You know, what are your blind spots? What are you uh, feeling is something that you're avoiding or numbing out of a fear or a limiting belief or a discomfort? And then what outcome are you expecting? What can you accept? And what is like the best and worst case scenario from what you're creating, from the project that you might want to complete or you do want to complete? Um, so I'd actually try to use this time as an exercise here. If we'll give it maybe 2 minutes to uh, for you to kind of fill in the dots here, to spell it out, and if it could help, that we could break into another breakout room too, to brainstorm that together with others. But yeah, we'll give it a minute for you to collect your thoughts here, and then we'll go into breakout room. Cool. In the last couple of minutes, we'll just go over real quickly some tips that might help in as you go forward with your content creation. Um, and let me share my screen. Um, so uh, I think actually this is really relevant to what we were just talking about, is that, you know, whenever there is this space, well, I'll just say that we can learn anything, we can learn from anything and anyone around us. I think if we can sort of adopt that mindset, that even if there is something that's triggering or, you know, angering, or even is a complete opposite perspective from you, or maybe that they're wrong or whatever, what can you draw out of that for yourself? What can that teach you? You know, um, kind of kind of combating that with curiosity. I think for me, it's been really helpful to adopt that. Um, it's even just a more, calming sense for me internally in terms of managing my own emotions there. Um, a consistent check-in if with what's authentic to you, and if it's authentic to you. Um, I think it's really easy for us to get caught up in like doing and the hustle and creating, taking that action, but we forget about the evaluation part of that loop, right? We forget about the retrospectives, the point of reflection to actually slow down. Um, so just checking in if as you're doing it, is it still really authentic to you? Is this still really what you want to do? Like with what Amanda was sharing earlier, if it's not feeling like you're getting excited about it anymore, what else can you try? What else is something that is more maybe relevant to you in the moment? Um, and how can you experiment with that? Are you utilizing some maybe questions you can ask in regarding this? Is utilizing strengths? Is it really something that really leans into your values and your strengths? Are you being honest with what you're expressing? Are you holding something back just to please others? Um, where are you feeling silenced? Is it challenging? So just some questions to kind of reflect on and check in. The favorite part in sustainability here is also setting up your ideal environment. So that's the things around making sure your sleep schedule is correct, right? Some people are more creative in the morning. Some people are actually more creative at night. What actually works for you? Um, looking at and actually, if you do struggle getting up in the morning, a thing that I've been experimenting with is scheduling the most exciting thing for you in as the first thing to do in the morning. That helps you get up, like helps you actually get started on something that you're actually looking forward to. What's your location like? What is your work environment like? Is that conducive to your creative process? Um, can you play music? Is there something that helps you get in the mood? Is there other senses that you could enact that help you get into that flow state? Um, and lastly, are there people that you can surround yourself more with? That's the most important part of the environment and creating the ideal environment is surrounding yourself with the people who are going to continually sparking those ideas, who can support you in that realm of possibility of exploration rather than fears or limiting beliefs or doubts. Um, so are you surrounding yourself with the right people who have that same drive and that same mindset? And lastly, as I was saying, is taking that break to slow down, to start doing more of that evaluation, going for walks, seeing friends, hanging out at beaches, going to dance parties. Like there are so many things, of course, that I think we get so caught up in trying to produce so much. Um, it can very much consume our minds and our hearts. And one thing I've been really doing is really practicing that presence when I am not creating content, you know, to really just give my mind and body that break. Um, and if something does come up, which most likely it does, just how things work, I just take a quick note of it, right? I'll carry around at one point I did try to carry on a paper notepad. That didn't really work, but uh, on your phone, take some notes, and just jot it down real quick. But then reconnect again with where you are, and being present with that, just to help your mind and body disconnect from being overwhelmed with all the creation that you are doing. Sometimes it is helpful to just receive instead. So what we talked about then is this process, right, of setting the intentions, um, increasing your emotional awareness, the emotional intelligence. What is that specific emotion you might be feeling, and getting very specific on that, whereas that might be coming from, and how that might uncover the underlying beliefs, or maybe where that is a challenge or growth area for you, whether that's valid, whether or not it's still honest to you, um, and really absorbing that design thinking mentality of experimenting, prototyping, that we're all in beta, that we're all imperfect, um, and we're all just trying things, and it's always going to look different for everybody. And then once you find what works, setting that routine and setting up your environment that will really keep that going, that helps continually sparking these ideas within you, that can help serve as reminders, um, and really help incorporate, or really help add to what contributes to that flow state, right? With what feels natural to you. Um, yeah, I know we're up on time, a little bit over on time, but if you've enjoyed this and or want to talk more, you can connect with me on my website, or email, or Instagram, or listen to the podcast. You can definitely connect over all of those areas, and I hope that this was helpful and insightful for you.